Good evening, my friends. So, you want to learn to speak and understand English. You have had a long day. You are tired. Lay down in your bed, close your heavy eyes, and let's listen to a story while we slowly fall into the arms of the English language.
The White Carnation. On the night that was to have been my last on earth, I made as careful a toilette as though I had been going to a dinner dance or to the opera. Indeed, I had half decided to go to the latter place. It depended on what they were singing, and how far my money would carry me. I had just $20 and a little silver in my pocket-book. That was all I had in the world, all that was left of the $40,000 which I had in January, when Edgar Brandon took me into his office in the Broad Exchange Building. No, I was not fleeced by Edgar. He was the best friend I ever had, if I had only known enough to appreciate the fact. But I had tried to be a plunger. I thought Ned was too slow, and, even after my folly had been brought home to me a half-dozen times, after my own money was almost exhausted, I had persisted in being a fool. Ned had given me a last solemn warning, but there came a chance to recoup. Ah, it was such a sure thing. That tip of George Ellery's on Northeastern. I bought heavily. I was acting quite within my rights, I told myself, in signing the firm's name to the checks, and how pleased Ned would be. Then there came that crash of which everybody knows, and all who are long on Northeastern remember it bitterly. Ned acted like a gentleman. He took up all the checks and made no fuss, but the next day, with a look I can never forget, he said, "Felton, this ends things between you and me. I never wish to see your face again until I have forgotten what you have done, and that will not be in a hurry, I can promise you." That was all. I tried it alone, but fared very ill. I fancied that my dealings when with Brandon were being talked about, and that some of the men on the curb shunned me. It was my imagination. Maybe. I think the truth was that I despised myself. I had my name removed from the waiting list of Brandon's club, where he had placed it, to save my being blackballed. After a little while I resigned from my own club. All this would not have been so bad had I had any money. I had been used to money and to luxurious living all my life, but I had no funds, nor did I know of a way to obtain any. And now I was down to my last dollar, or what amounted to the same thing. I had figured out just what I was to do. There should be a modest little dinner at a quiet French restaurant I knew, a few cigars, a cab of course, and an orchestra chair at the Metropolitan. I would take another cab after the opera, for I had about settled upon the East River. It was a more vague, a more mysterious region than the North River, which was too familiar, I thought. I remembered from long ago certain rocks at the water's edge on the east side. I would drive over there and dismiss the cab. Then there would be a tall figure standing on the rocks, smoking a cigar and gazing gloomily at the dark water below. The cigar burns to the end. A clock somewhere strikes midnight. The tall figure leaps out and down into the darkness. And that is the last of Richard Felton. I really felt very sorry for myself as I put on my evening coat, and sorry for Edgar too when he should hear of my death. As I knotted my tie before the mirror, I noticed something on the left lapel of my coat. I had not had it on for several weeks, and there were 2 moth holes in the cloth. That was a slight matter to annoy a man about to die, but annoy me it did. I had never been shabby in my life, and I did not wish to go out on this last evening in a shabby coat. But I saw no help for it. I had no other coat. I went out on the street, still thinking of those 2 moth holes. As I passed a florist's window, I had an idea. I went into the shop and bought a large white double carnation, which I pinned to the lapel in a manner to conceal the defects. I went to the restaurant and ate my dinner, smoking a good cigar afterward, while I leisurely watched the other diners, several couples, and 2 or 3 merry parties. At about 8:30 I took a cab and drove to the Metropolitan. I chose a 4-wheeler in preference to a hansom. I wished to be comfortable, to stretch my legs and smoke. I found the opera was Tristan and Isolde. This did not suit me at all. It was too big, too remote. The tragedy was so stupendous. I think I fancied my own would seem small in comparison. And then the house would be dark, and I did not wish that. Tonight I wished to see beautiful women with flashing jewels, to hear the frou-frou of silken garments, to inhale perfumes suggesting luxury and wealth, to move in the surroundings that had once been mine by right. Traviata, or even Il Barbiere, would have done, but the thought of that great, lonely Isolde, pouring out her mighty Liebestod in the gloom, made me shudder. "Drive up the avenue," I called to the man. I should have liked to go to a ball. A masque would have suited me best. Oh, heaven, how I craved gaiety, light and laughter tonight. I had such a surfeit of sadness. I thought of all the women I knew, and dismissed the idea of calling on any one of them. Alice Lazari I thought of last of all. It would sadden me to go there. I had not seen her for 3 months. Would she be shocked tomorrow when she heard? Bah! I wondered if all suicides were not stupid egoists. Some of the houses of the avenue were shrouded in gloom. There were lights in the windows of others. All looked equally forbidding. There was none that had a welcome for me. This would not do. Time was slipping away. I looked at my watch. 10 o'clock. I heard sounds of music, and from the darkness ahead there loomed a great house ablaze with light. As we drew nearer I saw many carriages. Gaily dressed women alighted from them and ascended the steps. "Drive around into the side street and stop at the end of the line of carriages there," I said to the man. I got out and walked slowly around past the entrance. It seemed to me I should know who lived here. I looked at the neighboring houses, and gradually I remembered. It was a wealthy steel man, a magnate the papers called him, lately come from the West. He had a wife with social aspirations, and a daughter who was said to be beautiful. What was the name? Ah, yes, Sammis. I did not know them, but that made no difference. My resolve was taken. The sight of all those women and men crowding up the steps acted like a tonic upon me, and gave me courage to do a reckless thing. I would go into that house for an hour, and mingle among the guests as one of them. Without a moment's hesitation I mounted the steps and entered. A page in livery stood at the door of the drawing-room, announcing the guests. I gave him my name, and almost expected to see the people turn in surprise as the boy called out, "Mr. Richard Felton," but no one did so. I walked up to 2 ladies standing in the centre of the room, and bowed to them. I heard their conventional murmur of pleasure, but did not dare look at their faces. Then I moved away, giving place to others, and looked about me. The great rooms were furnished with magnificence, but there was nothing to offend good taste. Everywhere were flowers. An orchestra was playing somewhere in the hall. I saw no familiar face in the crowd. I became conscious that someone was looking hard at me. I glanced leisurely in the direction from which I felt the stare to come, and saw a stout, red-faced old gentleman with white chin-whiskers. It was Sammis. I recognized him instantly from the newspaper pictures. Uncomfortable as I felt to be suspected thus early, I met his gaze boldly for a moment. Then other people came between us, and I moved away. Decidedly I must bestir myself, and at least appear to know some people, otherwise my adventure was like to end quickly. Yet I felt my spirits rising in spite of the danger of ridicule or humiliation. The thought of approaching any of the women was distasteful, but suddenly my eye was caught by a short, stockily built man with sandy hair, wearing an ill-fitting evening coat, on the left lapel of which was pinned a white carnation. This recalled my own floral adornment. The sandy-haired man and I were the only men present who wore flowers. I wondered if his coat was moth-eaten. Then I strolled across the room toward him. I fancied he looked somewhat frightened as he saw me approaching, and this put me more at my ease. "My friend," I said, smiling, "you and I alone of all the company, it seems, are wearing white carnations." He looked at me quickly, came a little closer, and made, I thought, a very odd reply. "Love before all," he said, and he stammered over the words. Then he looked as though he were sorry he had said them. "I echo the sentiment," I replied, laughing. "It is an admirable one while the love lasts." On second thought I asked, "Is that the language of the flower we wear?" The sandy-haired man did not reply. He was looking at me very dubiously. "I did not expect to see you here," he said at length. "My meeting with you is an equally unlooked-for pleasure," I replied lightly. "May I ask who you are?" "Certainly. My name is Felton." "Why do you wear that flower?" "Ah, for a private reason." "Are you a friend of hers?" "There are not too many who would call me by that name just now," I said. "If you will tell me which particular she you refer to." "If it is the one I mean, you needn't be afraid to mention her name to me." "But I must be cautious as well as you." Now all this was only idle chatter on my part, simply to supply myself with occupation, that Sammis's suspicions might be allayed. The mysterious red-haired man was mildly amusing too, but when he asked, "Do you know of the accident to Chase?" I felt some irritation. "My friend," I answered, "you are much better at interrogating than at answering, but I'll reply to that question. I know all about the accident to Chase. I know all about everything, why you wear a white carnation and all." He stared at me incredulously for a minute, and then said, "In that case, what are you going to do?" As he spoke I looked over his head and into the eyes of a tall, beautiful young woman who was regarding me intently. I could have sworn she smiled. Certainly her eyes looked an invitation. "I am going to bid you good evening," I said to the red-haired man, and moved away in the direction of the lady. As I approached her, something told me this was Sammis's daughter. There was even a faint likeness in the curve of her red lips to the mouth of the old man. Both expressed a powerful will and courage indomitable. I fancied she grew a shade paler, and her eyes swept the room. I also gave a hurried glance about. Sammis was not visible. I was quite near her now, and suddenly she leaned forward and whispered, "The white carnation!" My reply must have been an inspiration. "Love before all," I whispered back. She flushed beautifully. "Mr. Chase?" she murmured. "Mr. Chase has met with an accident," I said in a low voice. Her face expressed blank dismay. "And you? You come in his place? Are you from Mr. Brandon?" It was my turn to look at her blankly. "From Edgar Brandon?" I stammered. "Certainly," she said with some impatience. "Has anything happened to Edgar? Speak quickly." "No, nothing, and I am his friend." She looked greatly relieved, and as she moved away slowly she whispered, "Come to the conservatory in half an hour. I shall be there, and we can talk freely." With what eagerness I looked about for the red-haired man! His mystery, which I had thought rather stupid at first, now held the strongest fascination for me. It seemed to be her mystery too. I saw he had crossed the room, and was standing near the door. I went over to him and drew him into the hall. The orchestra was playing softly, and I got him behind a palm tree. "Now tell me everything," I said. "You must excuse my rudeness a while ago. Edgar Brandon is my best friend. I will do anything to serve him. You have just seen Miss Sammis speak with me. I swear you may trust me." "They're to elope this evening, Brandon and she," he replied. "But you must know that. Chase, Brandon's friend, was to have come here half an hour before the time, enter the house as one of the guests, help her to escape through the conservatory window, and get her to the carriage. He is a stranger to Miss Sammis, and the sign was to be a white carnation. The password I have already given you. Chase sprained his ankle badly this afternoon. He can't walk. Brandon was desperate. He asked me to come in Chase's place. I can tell you one thing, though. I don't like the job, and I'll tell you another. Unless I'm greatly mistaken, the old man—" He stopped suddenly, his eyes looking past me. I turned and saw the old man at my elbow. "May I speak to you a moment?" he asked. I bowed, and he led the way down the hall, through the dining room, and beyond it to a small room. He closed the door, and, turning, stood regarding me with compressed lips. I felt very uncomfortable. "May I ask your name?" he said at length. "Felton," I replied promptly. "I do not think I have met you before, have I?" I was vexed beyond measure at this inopportune discovery. I cast about in my mind for some wild tale to account for my presence in the house. I had almost determined to throw myself upon his hospitality, anything to gain another hour. Meanwhile I had answered "No" to his question. "Then if I make a mistake you must pardon me. You are not one of the men from the Central Office?" I could have shouted aloud with glee. I was taken for a detective. "I am, sir," I answered. "I recognized your friend as coming from there, but I was not sure of you until I saw you talking to him just now. You look like a gentleman." He was delightful, this old man, and my heart really warmed toward him. The smile with which I answered him was genuine. "There are 4 of you here, are there not?" he asked. "There are, sir." "Well, 3 will be enough to watch those gimcracks in there," jerking his head toward the drawing room. "I have a much more important matter I am going to entrust to you. Look at this." He held the bit of paper toward me. I took it and read: "Shall be at the corner of Madison Avenue with the carriage at 11. C. will be in the house half an hour earlier. Aid him in playing his part. Courage, my dearest one. Love before all. E." I frowned over the paper and shook my head sagely. "This," continued the old man, "was brought to me this evening by my daughter's maid. It comes from a blackguard named Brandon, Edgar Brandon, whom I have forbidden the house. He intends to run away with my girl to night, under my nose. I mean to stop the business." "And you wish my services in the matter?" I asked. "I do. I wish you not to let her out of your sight. I'd like to catch her in the very act of running away. And if it wasn't for the scandal it would make, I'd drag her back and humiliate her before her guests. I wish to teach the minx such a lesson as will forever prevent her attempting such a thing again. As for the man—" He stopped, his jaw closing like a trap, and his mouth looking very ugly. My heart was rapidly cooling toward Mr. Sammis. I studied the paper critically while I did some rapid thinking. My plan began to unfold itself, incompletely as yet, but one stroke, a bold one, I decided upon now. "Who is the C. referred to in the note?" I asked. "That I do not know," he replied. "Then I think I can inform you," I said in an assured tone. "You? How is that?" "You are a very shrewd man, Mr. Sammis, to have recognized me as a detective so quickly," I replied. "You are the first who has ever done so on an occasion like this." The old fox was not averse to a little flattery. I saw his iron jaw relax. "Where your keenness is at fault is in regard to our friend with the sandy hair whom we left in the hall. Such a man could not come from the Central Office. Look at his nervous fingers, his anxious eyes. I spotted him right away as a suspect and entered into conversation with him. I had just learned his name was Carruthers when you came up. This note makes it clear. He is the C. referred to. My belief is he has had the boldness to enter your house in the guise of a guest for the purpose of helping your daughter to get away." "God save us!" cried Sammis. "But you are a clever one. Upon my soul, I believe you are right." "I am certain of it," I answered. "Now this requires careful handling. First I must ask what your wishes are. Do you wish this man Carruthers put out of the house and the whole business stopped at once?" "By no means. Not at all. I wish to catch them in the act of running away. Stop her on the sidewalk, on the way to the rascal's carriage, if possible. I wish to leave no loophole for any lies or explanations." "Then I know just how to act. Do you put the matter in my hands?" "Absolutely." I was beginning to like him again. "The first thing I shall do will be to make an excuse for speaking to your daughter. Perhaps I may get a point from her, perhaps not. That depends. At any rate, Carruthers, after seeing us talking together, can easily be persuaded that I am a friend of Brandon's, now that you have given me his name, and so play right into our hands." "Capital! Suppose I present you to my daughter?" "My dear sir," I said deprecatingly, "that would be to spoil everything. I have my own methods. Trust all to me." A few minutes afterward I sauntered up to Miss Sammis in the drawing room. "Stand here a few minutes as though chatting with me," I said. "Then lead the way to the conservatory. It will be all right. You need not fear to be observed." One of the artists from the opera had just risen to sing, and the guests were bestowing themselves to listen. We left the room quietly. We stood facing each other in the conservatory. I said gently, "You have need of all your courage. I have just left your father. Your maid has played you false, and has given him Edgar's note sent you to-day. He thinks I am a detective, and has told me everything. I am supposed to be watching you." She turned very pale, but her mouth, a moment ago so soft and smiling, was now firm as Sammis's own. "The woman must have stolen other letters, then. This explains my being watched so closely of late. Will you tell me what your father has against Brandon?" "At first it was only an absurd ambition for me to make what he calls a brilliant match. Then Edgar met with some loss in his business. The amount was exaggerated, but my father believed the worst. It was then that he became very bitter against Edgar." She had unwittingly dealt me a hard blow, and I reddened under it. I, then, was the indirect cause of her unhappiness. "I do not know who you are," said the poor girl, "but I must trust you. I do trust you." "You do well," I said, "for indeed it is necessary. Listen, Miss Sammis. I shall not stop to explain my presence here, for we have a bold game to play, and time is precious. Only believe this: Edgar Brandon was once a dear friend of mine. I am still his friend, though not now in his favor. To be restored to it I will stop at nothing. You, who love him so, can understand this feeling, can you not?" Her eyes grew beautifully soft and tender as she bent her head. "It is now nearly 11 o'clock, and Edgar must be outside. Where is your maid?" "She was to wait for me under this window." She ran toward it and looked out. "The girl is not there," she said. "Now this is what you are to do. Go upstairs and send the maid down with your things to the appointed place. Have her wear a long dark cloak, with a hood if possible. Has she such a garment? Good. You yourself bring a wrap, light in color, something distinctively yours. First, though, show me how to reach the yard through the rear of the house." I followed her out through dimly lighted rooms to a hall from which a side door opened. "This leads to the yard," she said. I opened it and looked out on the dark space, about 12 feet wide, and on the line of carriages across the street. "Now return to the drawing room," I said. "Look for a short man with sandy hair and wearing a white carnation. Speak to him without fear, and send him to me at this door. He should be here in 5 minutes. 15 minutes later, come to the door yourself and open it. You will find me on the steps outside. Can you be ready so soon?" "In half the time," she replied. "Brave girl! Now go. Don't be afraid. Your father will not stop you." In a few minutes I heard the sound of hurried, uncertain footsteps approaching, and Brandon's friend appeared. I opened the side door and drew him out upon the steps, closing the door softly and adjusting the latch that I might open it again. "Whew!" he breathed softly, but with great relief. "A million wouldn't tempt me back inside that house." "Carruthers," I said, "I don't know your name, but for tonight it's Carruthers. Our work is just beginning." In a few words I told him as much of my interview with Sammis as I thought best. "Run down to Madison Avenue and find Brandon's cab. Tell him to drive up to within 50 feet of the house, and to have his cab door open. At the instant Miss Sammis is lifted in, he is to drive down Madison Avenue like the wind. Down Madison Avenue, that is important, no matter where he is going. Now, do you understand?" "Yes, but I have no hat." "We'll both have to sacrifice our hats and coats for tonight, Carruthers, but it's in a great cause. Love before all, you know." I laughed and gave him a push toward the gate as I said, "Come back here instantly and stand well below the door, in the shadow." I crossed the street, found my own four-wheeler, and bade the driver bring the vehicle up to the house opposite the side gate. I took all the bills in my pocket and thrust them into his hand as I gave him explicit instructions what he was to do. He promised faithful obedience. "Mind," I concluded, "the instant you get the word 'go,' you are to drive like mad up Fifth Avenue. Don't stop within 20 blocks, no matter what you hear." I ran back up the steps. My heart was beating rapidly, for the crucial moment was approaching. I had Sammis and the maid yet to deal with. As I reached the top step the door opened and the maid appeared. She started at seeing me, but I put my finger to my lips. "I am sent by Mr. Sammis to stop this thing," I said, "though your mistress does not know it. Come, don't be afraid. I know all about the note." The girl plainly mistrusted me, but went, unwillingly, toward the conservatory window, underneath which I bade her stand. The spot was a dark one, about a dozen yards from the side door. I noted with satisfaction that she wore a long dark wrap with a hood. She carried in her hands a small bag. And now for Sammis. What if, in the meantime, he had grown suspicious, and had spoken to one of the real detectives? I should be exposed, and our scheme ruined. One glance at his face when I saw him reassured me. The drawing-room was almost deserted, the guests being at supper. Sammis was watching for me, and came toward me instantly. "Mr. Sammis," I said, "things have come our way better than I dared to hope. I have got from that fool Carruthers the whole story of their plans. Both he and your daughter think I am a friend of Brandon's. Come into the conservatory. We can talk better there." I was drawing him toward it as I spoke. "Brandon is here. He is waiting in a carriage down near the end of the line. Look out of the window, just opposite the gate, and you will see a cab which I have sent for. It is this vehicle I intend your daughter to enter, but when she steps inside it, instead of Brandon, I wish her to find her father. Will not this be proof in its most convincing form that she is running away? In the meantime I shall see that Mr. Brandon is detained, that you may deal with him as you see fit." The dramatic element in this appealed to Sammis, for he whispered, "Good, good," several times, and shook my hand warmly. "I shall remember you handsomely for this," he said in my ear. "Your approval is sufficient," I answered. "But come, there is no time to lose. Your daughter may come here at any moment. Let us go through the window." I jumped down on the grass, and Sammis followed quickly. He was wonderfully spry for his years. The maid stood in the shadow where I had left her. "Will you just speak a word to this young woman here, Mr. Sammis?" I whispered. "I fear she doesn't quite trust me." When he saw the maid cloaked, with bag in hand, he seemed greatly surprised. I did not like the look which I felt rather than saw on his face as he turned toward me. For a moment I feared I had gone too far. "Everything has proceeded exactly according to the original programme," I said. "Your daughter expected her maid to attend her. I did not wish to arouse her suspicions." "Certainly, certainly, you are right," he said. "Louise, in everything you are to do exactly as this gentleman bids you." We crossed the grass plot silently, hurried through the gate, and in another minute I had him safe inside my cab. I looked up toward Madison Avenue, and saw Carruthers coming toward me. Things were timing themselves beautifully. He slipped in the side gate and joined me near the rear of the house. "All right," he whispered. "A four-wheeler with two black horses. The door stands open. Brandon knows what to do." I signed him to stay where he was, and tiptoed up the steps to the side door, which I opened. "I am here," came a soft voice from within. "Hand me out your wrap," I whispered. She did so. It was a pearl grey one, with a lace-trimmed hood. I crept along the shadow of the house to where the maid stood motionless. "Your mistress has brought the wrong wrap, and is afraid to come out," I whispered. "It is absolutely necessary that she does so. She wishes the one you have. Quick, take it off." She obeyed at once. "You are a bright girl, and Mr. Sammis is greatly pleased with you," I said. "You'd better put this thing on. It's chilly here. It shall be yours after this business is ended." She fingered the soft fleecy thing with evident delight, and draped it over her shoulders. "Now, I am going to see that the young lady doesn't get away. When I send my partner, the other detective, for you, go with him to the carriage where Mr. Sammis is. In case there is any fainting, we may need you. Give me that bag. You don't wish to be bothered with it." At last the supreme moment had come. I crept back to Carruthers, and with a last whispered word or two pushed him toward the maid. I saw him lead her out to the gate, drawing the hood of the wrap over her head as he walked beside her. The door of the cab opened. Carruthers picked the girl up and seemed to fling her inside. "Go!" he shouted, slamming the door, and the horses dashed toward Fifth Avenue. I ran up the steps. "Now!" I cried, and in an instant Miss Sammis was beside me. I seized her hand, and we ran full speed up the dark side street toward Madison Avenue. I saw the black horses, the open cab door, and in a moment she was lifted into arms ready to receive her. I scrambled after her as the horses bounded forward, and as we turned the corner on two wheels, I looked out and saw the figure of Carruthers alone on the sidewalk, waving us a hilarious farewell. She lay within the shelter of his arms, her eyes closed. She was a brave girl, but I could see by her pallor as we dashed past the street lamps how sorely her courage had been tried. Brandon looked down at her lovely face, having eyes for nothing else. I put my head out of the window. No pursuing carriage was in sight. "You are in no danger now," I said. "Do you wish to drop me or take me on to the station?" Brandon started. "Who is that?" he asked sharply. "It can't be." He leaned forward and looked at me. "Edgar, you said once you never wished to see me until you had forgotten. I have tried to be of some service to you tonight. Perhaps you can forgive some day." She opened her eyes. "He saved me for you, Edgar. My maid betrayed me. Father was informed of everything, but he brought me safely through the danger. I do not know his name even, but he shall be my friend and yours forever." Brandon reached forward and pressed my hand in the darkness. The story was told briefly as we dashed through 23rd Street toward the river. Not until we were on the other side and out of New York State did we breathe freely. There were still a few minutes before the train left. Edgar had brought out from somewhere a travelling cap and made me put it on. The last thing he did as we all sat together in the car was to scribble something with a fountain pen in a little book held on his knee. He tore out a check and handed it to me. "You can serve me while I am gone, Dick," he said. "A great rise is coming in Consolidated Steel. Buy all you can, and for Brandon and Felton. We are partners and friends again, my boy." As I came back alone on the ferry, a gentle breeze was blowing up from the bay. The odor of the white carnation was wafted pleasantly to my nostrils. I looked toward the dark city across the water, and again thought of Alice Lazari. To-morrow I would go to see her. To-morrow. A distant bell boomed out midnight, and suddenly I remembered that it was the hour at which I was to die. I had quite forgotten it. Then I laughed softly. How much better it was to live. End of The White Carnation by Francis Livingston.